You're listening to the Broken Havoc podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications.
What's up, everybody? It is Broken Havoc here, right here on the Broken Havoc podcast, here to review Elimination Chamber 2022, coming to us from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. The final stop, the final pay-per-view, not premium live event, the final pay-per-view before the biggest show of the year, that being WrestleMania 38 in Dallas, Texas. But what are my thoughts on the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view? I thought it was an okay pay-per-view. Was it really amazing? No, it wasn't. Was it terrible? No, I'm kind of 50-50 on it. But the right booking decisions, in my opinion, were made. But I will say, in some of the matches, WWE were really rushing a lot of things. But I'll get into that later on. Of course, we had the main events being the men's Elimination Chamber match, with Brock Lesnar winning the WWE Championship in such weird fashion, and I'll get to that later on. Of course, we had Goldberg versus Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship, in which I thought it was a good match. It was a quick match, as expected, but it was not a bad match. Of course, Reigns went over. Thank God he went over. It would have made absolutely no sense if Goldberg went over in this match. I would have literally lost all my faith in WWE if WWE had booked Goldberg to win the Universal Championship once again in Saudi Arabia. But yeah, before I get on with the Elimination Chamber review, make sure to like and subscribe to the Broken Havoc podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Of course, make sure to like and subscribe, and as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. But yeah, let's get on with the Elimination Chamber review. Elimination Chamber kicks off with Roman Reigns versus Bill Goldberg for the Universal Championship. Overall, again, this wasn't, a terrible match. I actually really got a kick of the match. I'm not going to lie. The match was really quick, as expected. It lasted less than 10 minutes. It was probably, I think the match was like 6 to 7 minutes, probably even less than that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I got to rewatch the match. But overall, again, the right booking decision was made, with Roman Reigns winning and retaining the Universal Championship. Again, it would have been an absolute shitstorm all over social media if Goldberg had won the Universal Championship. But yeah, man, I'm going to get on with the match. This is the second time this year that Roman Reigns has kicked off a major pay-per-view. Of course, last month at the Royal Rumble, he kicked off the Royal Rumble going up against Seth Rollins in a good match with a lackluster finish, which I thought was actually really terrible. But it was a pretty good match overall, but again, it was a shitty finish. And of course, he kicks off the Elimination Chamber facing Bill Goldberg in one of the main events. It's like WWE has been doing this for a while now. Like, they have like two main events, and then one main event will kick off the show, and then the other one will finish the show. I don't know why they do that, but it is what it is. But yeah, we got Goldberg versus Roman Reigns. Reigns, when he makes his entrance, he tells the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to acknowledge him. Then Goldberg comes out. Again, this match was not that long, to be quite honest with you. The match starts. Both lock up. We get a right hand by Reigns, and then we get a headbutt by Reigns. Then we get a couple of right hands by Reigns, and then he sends Goldberg to the outside. He takes Goldberg headfirst onto the announce table. We had a couple of knees by Goldberg, and then he takes Reigns to the ring. We get a right hand with a right. Then Reigns is in control. Reigns then runs into a spear by Goldberg. Then Goldberg tries to go for the jackhammer, but then Reigns counters into a Uranagi. Then after that, we get a cover by Reigns on Goldberg and a near fall. Then after that, Reigns sets up the Superman punch, and then he proceeds to hit the Superman punch, but then Reigns tries to go for the spear, but then Goldberg counters back with the spear after that. Goldberg then picks up Reigns, but then Reigns applies the guillotine choke. Goldberg sends Reigns to the corner, and it actually did look like Goldberg was actually going to escape the guillotine choke, and I legit had I had fears in my mind that Goldberg was going to escape the guillotine choke and literally just squash the hell out of Roman Reigns. And if that was the case, I would have been so pissed off. I'm not going to lie to you, man. But Reigns continues to have the guillotine choke locked in, but then Goldberg drives Reigns into the corner, but Reigns still has the guillotine applied, but then Goldberg gets taken down with the guillotine. Goldberg fades, Roman Reigns wins, and he retains, beating Goldberg by making Goldberg go to sleep, and retains the Universal Championship in the opener of the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. Overall thoughts, this was not a bad match, I will admit. It was not a bad match. Again, coming into this match, you should have already known that this match was probably going to be less than 10 minutes because, number one, it's a Goldberg match, and number two, I mean, like, okay, it's only number one. It's a Bill Goldberg match, and Goldberg matches never last long whatsoever. But surprisingly, this match lasted like less than 10 minutes, I believe. I gotta go back and rewatch the match to see how long that match took. But overall, the right decision was made. Roman Reigns retains the Universal Championship. It would have been really stupid, in my opinion, if WWE had Roman Reigns drop the Universal title to Bill Goldberg, only to drop it at WrestleMania. In my opinion, that would have been the dumbest decision that WWE would have ever done, because of the fact that if Goldberg beat Reigns on this show, everything that we have seen from Roman Reigns from August of 2020 up until now would be rendered useless. And then you're basically telling the viewer, or the viewer is asking themselves, damn, I invested a year and a half of Roman Reigns' Universal title run, and then all of a sudden he just gets squashed by Goldberg. What kind of sense does that make? But thankfully that wasn't the case. But Roman Reigns retains the Universal Championship in the opener of the Elimination Chamber. All right, in our next match, we got the Women's Elimination Chamber match. Now, there was a little bit of a typo. They showed the graphic of the Men's Elimination Chamber match in the beginning, right before they went with the video package for the Women's Elimination Chamber match. So we all thought it was going to be the Men's Elimination Chamber match, and I was really confused. I was like, why are they showing the Men's Elimination Chamber match graphic, but then they're talking about the Women's Elimination Chamber match? Number two, why would you have the Men's Elimination Chamber match go on after Goldberg versus Roman Reigns? It would make no sense at all anyway. But we have the Women's Elimination Chamber match featuring Liv Morgan versus Bianca Belair versus Alexa Bliss versus Rhea Ripley versus Nikki A.S.H. versus Doudrop. Of course, the winner gets to face either Becky Lynch or Lita. Spoiler alert, it is Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania. The match starts. Nikki and Liv... Actually, no, I'm going to give you guys my thoughts of the match beforehand, before I go on to everything. Overall, I thought the match was not bad at all. A lot of people were not really that big of a fans of this chamber match. I totally get it. There was a lot of crazy ass spots throughout the match, but if you compare this to the Men's Elimination Chamber match, definitely the Men's Elimination Chamber match was 10 times better than this one. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed what I saw in this match. I'm not gonna lie, and that's not me being biased. I'm just telling my honest thoughts. I thoroughly enjoyed what I saw, and again, Bianca Belair did go over in this match. She will be facing Becky Lynch, but I'll talk about that later on after I get through with this match. But Nikki A.S.H. and Liv Morgan start. Both lock up. We get a waist lock by Nikki A.S.H. Liv goes for a Hurricane Rana, but then Nikki drives Liv onto the middle rope. Nikki then tries to send Liv to the steel chain. That it's basically the wall of the chamber, but I'm just going to call it the steel chain. But then Liv counters back, but Nikki takes Liv to the chamber floor, which is not the steel floor, because, of course, this is the newer version of the Elimination Chamber, which debuted back in 2017, but that's another story for another time. Then Nikki reverses the Irish whip to the chain of the chamber. Then she spins Liv Morgan to the ring post. We get a cover by Nikki and a near fall. Then she proceeds to drive Liv repeatedly onto the floor. Then the next entrant in the Elimination Chamber match is Doudrop. Nikki then offers a handshake. Doudrop then accepts, but then Doudrop drives her to the steel chain. How dumb does Nikki A.S.H. look for doing that? But then she counters. Then she continues to drive Nikki to the chain. Then she takes Liv and picks her up and then drives her to the chain as well, and then throws Liv on the outside floor of the chamber. Then we get a running senton by Doudrop on Liv Morgan. Then she drives the face of Liv Morgan to the steel chain after that. Then she Doudrop gets hit with the ring post by Nikki A.S.H. I don't really recall what she did, but Doudrop gets sent to the post. I think it was face first, correct me if I'm wrong. But then Nikki stands tall in the center of the ring. Then the next entrant in the Elimination Chamber match is Rhea Ripley. At this point, Nikki wants to run away because of the fact that they have an ongoing feud going on. But then Doudrop tries to go after Rhea. Then Rhea proceeds to super kick Dewdrop, but then Nikki climbs up the chamber. She proceeds to take out Liv Morgan, but then Rhea tries to catch up on Nikki ASH, but then Rhea after that sends Nikki headfirst on the chain, and then she hits the Riptide on Nikki ASH. What happens after that? After hitting the Riptide, Rhea goes for the cover and eliminates Nikki ASH. Nikki ASH is the first woman eliminated from the Women's Elimination Chamber match. And then after that, Alexa Bliss is the next entrant in the chamber match. Then she proceeds to go after everyone. She plants Liv to the mat. We get a drop kick on Rhea. We get a couple of double knees by Alexa Bliss, but then Liv sends Bliss face first. We get a double stomp by Liv to the back of Alexa Bliss after that. Then Rhea throws Liv across the ring. Liv goes to the top, but then Dewdrop pushes Liv and sends her face first to the pod. Then Dewdrop goes to the top, but then Rhea comes in, but then Dewdrop takes her out. Liv Morgan then comes in, and then she hits a sunset flip powerbomb on Dewdrop. We got a roll up by Liv on Dewdrop, and Dewdrop is the next woman to get eliminated from the Elimination Chamber match. At this point, Bianca Belair is the last entrant to come out of the Elimination Chamber. So when she comes out, she proceeds to work on everyone, but then Liv hits the knee on Bianca. Bianca then picks up Liv and then holds on in one arm and drops her to the center of the ring. Bianca then hits a spine buster on Alexa. We get a moonsault by Bianca on Alexa after that. Then she proceeds to face off with Ria Ripley. Then Bianca Belair and then Ria Ripley do somewhat of a team up. They proceed to double suplex Liv Morgan and Alexa Bliss, of course. I believe Bianca had Liv and Rhea Ripley had Alexa. I think it's vice versa. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't necessarily recall. But they hit a double suplex. Then Rhea slaps Bianca in retaliation. I do not know why, but of course, it's every woman for themselves. Then Bianca slaps Rhea back. Both proceed to go at it. We get a headbutt by Rhea, and then we get a right hand by Bianca. Then Bianca picks up Rhea, but then Rhea Ripley escapes. We get double knees on Rhea by Liv Morgan, so she comes back to the fray. Then Bliss takes Morgan down. Bliss goes to the top. She hits the Twisted Bliss on Liv Morgan. We get a cover by Alexa Bliss, and Liv Morgan is eliminated from the match. After that, we get a kick by Rhea on Alexa Bliss. She tries to hit the Riptide, but then Alexa counters, but Bianca comes in and interferes. Then she picks up Rhea Ripley and hits the KOD on Rhea Ripley. Bianca then pins Rhea Ripley to eliminate her from the match. Then Alexa out of nowhere hits the Code Red on Bianca Belair, but then we get a cover and a near fall. So both are the final two, and they're still in this match. Then Alexa goes to the top, but then Bianca retreats, I should say, to the floor. But then Bliss tries to hit a Hurricane Rana, but then Bianca catches her and drives Bliss multiple times to the steel chain of the chamber after that. Then Bianca goes to the top. She proceeds to miss the 450 splash, which looked really bad, by the way. I'm not going to lie. Bianca then picks up Alexa, but then Alexa counters. Then Bianca counters Alexa Bliss's DDT. We get a moonsault by Bianca, but then Alexa gets her knees up. Then we get a cover by Alexa and a near fall. We get a roll up by Alexa again and a near fall. Then we get a couple of slaps and right hands by Alexa Bliss. Then Bianca goes for a right. She proceeds to pick up Alexa Bliss, hits the KOD, the Kiss of Death. We get a cover by Bianca Belair. 1, 2, 3. And Bianca Belair wins the Women's Elimination Chamber match. And she will now proceed and go on to WrestleMania to face Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship. Overall thoughts on this match. I really enjoyed what I saw in this match. And again, there was a lot of spots in the match. There's some storylines that played into effect. Of course, the Rhea Ripley and Nikki ASH storyline, which honestly I just do not care about. It's honestly one of those feuds that really does not pique my interest and most likely does not pique your interest as well. But I will say, I did say in my predictions for this particular match that either Liv Morgan or Bianca Belair are going to win this match. And of course, Bianca Belair won this match. To me, it would make the perfect sense for Bianca Belair to beat Becky Lynch to basically redeem herself from the debacle that was SummerSlam a couple of months ago when, of course, Becky Lynch came back and squashed her in less than 5 minutes, or less than a minute, I should say. I said 5 minutes, bro. That match didn't even last 5 minutes. It barely lasted a freaking minute, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, man, I think this is the best way for Bianca to basically redeem herself for WrestleMania. Will WWE do it? We'll have to wait and see for WrestleMania. But Yeah, overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this Elimination Chamber match. Was it the best? No, but I thoroughly enjoyed what I saw, in my opinion. Here's one match that I really do not want to talk about, and that is Ronda Rousey and Naomi versus Charlotte and Sonya Deville. Ronda Rousey has one arm tied behind her back, but to be quite honest with you, it wasn't really tied behind her back. It was basically like tied on the side of Ronda Rousey, which made no sense whatsoever. But yeah, man, this feud I just did not care about whatsoever. Honestly, I'm not really as invested in Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair. Again, to be quite honest with you, we should have gotten Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey. But again, WWE, as always, during WrestleMania season, tends to do things backwards all of the time. I just do not know why they always go ass backwards every year for WrestleMania, but it is what it is. Yeah, man, we got Ronda Rousey, Naomi versus Charlotte and Sonya Deville. Ronda proceeds to get her right hand tied behind her back. Ronda Rousey and Sonya Deville start. So Sonya Deville has the sling. And then all of a sudden what happens? Sonya takes off the sling and she basically tricks Ronda. Then Sonya Deville goes straight for the attack. At this point, Deville is in control. Ronda proceeds to escape, and then we get a high kick by Ronda. Charlotte tags in, but then Charlotte retreats and then gets back in. Naomi tags in, and then Sonya tags in. Naomi then goes after Sonya. Sonya then takes Naomi into the corner. She flattens her to the mat. We get a cover and a near fall. Sonya is in control. Later on, Ronda is the legal woman. Then Charlotte tags Sonya. She proceeds to work on Ronda in the corner. Charlotte is in the apron and proceeds to take out Ronda in the corner, even though Charlotte is not even the legal woman in the match. Charlotte proceeds to tag in. Then she continues to go right on the attack on Ronda Rousey. She boots Naomi, who isn't legal as well. She was on the apron. Then Charlotte proceeds to work on Ronda. Ronda then tries to fight back on the outside. Ronda almost tags Naomi, but then Charlotte pulls her back. We get a takedown by Charlotte, and then we get a kick by Ronda. Then she proceeds to take out Charlotte and then tags Naomi. Then Naomi takes out Charlotte after that. Then we get a drop kick by Sonya Deville. Then Naomi hits a Hurricane Rana on Charlotte Flair. Then she hits a springboard enziguri, and then a corkscrew by Naomi onto the outside, which looked amazing. Then Naomi goes to the top rope. We get a crossbody after that. Then we get a cover and a near fall. Then Naomi gets caught with the Hurricane Rana attempt, and then Charlotte proceeds to hit the power bomb. Then we get a cover by Charlotte and a near fall. Charlotte then applies the figure 4 leg lock, but then Ronda comes in for the save. But then Sonya comes in and proceeds to attack Ronda Rousey. Then Sonya tags in. Sonya then goes for the running knee on Naomi. She proceeds to work on Naomi. Naomi then goes for the high kick. Then she tags Ronda Rousey after that. Ronda then goes after Sonya with one hand, and then she picks up Sonya. Then she hits the Piper's Pit. We get a cover and not cover. Then she proceeds to grab the arm of Sonya. Then Ronda applies the arm bar. Charlotte doesn't even save Sonya, but then Sonya taps out, and Naomi and Ronda Rousey win the match. Overall thoughts, this was not a bad match, but this is a match that I just did not care about whatsoever. I thought, to be quite honest with you, this match was not... I wasn't invested, and I'm still not invested in this feud. I mean, you know, the whole Sonya Deville and Naomi thing has been going for a while now. And, you know, it goes, and WWE, you know, from looking at the plans for WrestleMania, they probably do have a plan to book a match with Sonya Deville and Naomi. That's probably going to be one-on-one, but still, I mean, the feud just did not, you know, I'm just not really as invested in this feud as well. And the match with Charlotte and Ronda Rousey for WrestleMania, again, they should have done Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey, but they're definitely saving that for next year. But again, I mean, like, to be quite honest with you, this match, I was just not as invested in this match, to be quite honest with you. Even though there were a couple of good spots, I just did not care whatsoever. That's just my view. Drew McIntyre versus Madcap Moss in a Falls Count Anywhere no DQ match. This was another match that I stated in my predictions that I did not care about, but this match is only memorable for one reason and one reason only, and that is the way that Madcap Moss landed on his head later on in the match, which I will talk about later. But like literally everybody was talking about that spot, right? Like literally during the show and right after the show finished, everybody was talking about the spot that Madcap Moss, and you know how he landed on his head and it looked really bad. But Drew has his sword. Both proceed to go at it, but Corbin comes in and attacks McIntyre since it is no disqualification. We get a kick by Moss, but then McIntyre hits a clothesline on Corbin, then sends Moss to the outside. Then he sends Moss to the barricade. We get a headbutt by McIntyre, but then Baron Corbin comes in. McIntyre then chases Corbin after that. Moss then runs in and hits a boot on Moss. Then Corbin comes back, but then Corbin and Moss double suplex McIntyre on the stage. Then we get a cover by Moss and a near fall. Moss hits a right hand. McIntyre then fights off Corbin and Moss after that. Then we get a headbutt by Moss on McIntyre, but then takes McIntyre to the ring. Moss then runs into a throw across the ring by McIntyre and then throws Moss again. McIntyre then goes for a uppercut in the corner. Then he hits the Alabama Slam, landing Moss head first. And this was the spot that I was talking about. He basically hit the Alabama Slam on Moss, and I'm telling you, if you guys haven't seen it, it's all over Twitter. Check it out. You know, and I don't mean that in like a funny way. I mean that in a serious way. Like, look at that spot, man. Like, he hit the Alabama Slam, and Moss legitimately landed head first, and I mean like on the top of his head on the mat, which looked, I mean, that looked extremely gruesome, and I definitely hope that Madcap Moss is all right. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of his, but you would never like to see any type of wrestler get injured. And the fact that, you know, Madcap Moss took a spot like that, I mean, like, dude, that was extremely, extremely brutal. Hopefully Madcap Moss is all right, but still, man, that spot was absolutely gruesome. So hopefully he recovers from that. I think he didn't get any concussions from it, but still, I honestly, you know, I'm just really worried about Madcap Moss. Man, after that spot, Jesus Christ, man, I don't know what to say. But Madcap Moss he's really good in the ring, and he's a human freak. But, you know, I will say this, respect for Madcap Moss to taking such a gruesome spot like that. I think definitely 100% that spot was not planned, but still, man, like, you know, I mean, taking a spot like that is insane. But hopefully Madcap Moss is all right, because that was something very serious, in my opinion. Everybody was talking about it. Moss goes to the outside, but then McIntyre chases Corbin. But then he hits a belly-to-belly throw on Moss onto the outside. He throws him over the table after that, but then Corbin hits McIntyre with a chair. But then Corbin and Moss send him through the barricade. Then we get a cover and a near fall. Moss then goes to the top. We get a right hand by McIntyre. We get a chop by McIntyre. McIntyre is on the top with Moss. Hits a superplex after that, your typical superplex. And we get a cover and a near fall. We get a couple of right hands by McIntyre. Moss then goes for the backslide pin attempt. We get a near fall. Then McIntyre hits the Future Shock DDT, but then Corbin comes in and almost gets hit with the sword, so he immediately runs out. And then McIntyre goes for the Claymore. We get a cover on Moss, and we get a cover, and McIntyre beats Madcap Moss in this no disqualification match at Elimination Chamber. Hopefully this puts this whole feud to bed, because I'm sick and tired of this feud. I swear, if this feud goes straight to WrestleMania, I don't know what I'm gonna say, man. Like, this is one of those feuds that is just, to me, a flat out joke, in my opinion. I'm not invested in this feud, nor do I think anyone else is. I think, you know, nobody is really invested in Baron Corbin and Madcap Moss, and I constantly say this on the constant basis. Madcap Moss and Happy Corbin are arguably the worst heels in the business today. They're the type of heels that will get you go away heat, not legit heel heat. You don't want to pay money to see them get their ass kicked on television or on pay-per-view. I'm sorry. But, yeah, man. But again, I mean, really the only thing that was memorable on this particular match was that Madcap Moss botch right there. Hopefully he's all right. I mean, I don't like to see anybody get injured in wrestling. It sucks, but I think he's all right. Hopefully he's all right, man, because that was a really nasty spot. Here's one match that I thoroughly enjoyed, man, and I was actually, you know, shocked to, like, you know, see, you know, Lita still, like, having it, man. Like, I mean, of course we've seen her in the Royal Rumble, but I mean, man, in this one-on-one match with Becky Lynch, I mean, Lita looked amazing, but we got Becky Lynch versus Lita for the Raw Women's Championship. Overall, I definitely enjoyed this match. This was probably one of my favorite matches of the entire night. Probably this and the men's Elimination Chamber match were probably like the two best matches of the night, in my opinion. Lita looked great. Becky Lynch looked great as always. But the match starts. Both lock up. Becky wants to go for the disarmer right off the get-go, but then Lita escapes. Lita goes for the shoulder tackle. Both lock up. We get a right hand by Becky, and then we get a kick by Becky. She proceeds to take Becky down, and then we get a slap by Lita. We get a couple of right hands by Lita. Becky then catches Lita, but then Lita counters into the Hurricane Rana. At her age, man, Lita knows what she's doing. Becky then escapes the twist of fate, but then Becky regains control. Then she proceeds to grab the hair of Lita. We get a stomp to the back of Lita. She proceeds to drive the knee to the back of the neck of Lita. At this point, Becky is in control. Then Becky goes for a leg drop off of the second rope. We get a cover and a near fall. Becky then applies the side chin lock on Lita. Lita then proceeds to reverse it. She goes for repeated rights. Lita then runs into a back elbow. We get a couple of right hands by Lita. Becky goes to the top, and then we get a leg drop of Lita. Lita's drop to the back of Lita's leg by Lita. I think I messed up those notes right there. Becky then hits the exploder suplex. Lita then counters the exploder into a DDT. Both exchange shots. We get a clothesline by Lita. We get a knee by Lita after that. Then she proceeds to flatten her to the mat. Then after that, we get a crossbody by Lita, and we get a cover on Becky and a near fall after that. Then she tries to go for the twist of fate, but then Becky counters into the disarmer. Lita then reverses it into a roll-up, but we get another near fall. Then we get a roll-up by Becky after that, but then Becky grabs the ropes, but then she proceeds to get caught by the referee. So, of course, your typical heel tactics. Lita then applies the sleeper hold, but then Becky goes to the bottom rope. Becky then tries to go for the kick, but then Lita takes her down to the mat. We get a cover by Lita and a near fall. Becky rolls out on the outside, but then Lita works on Becky as well. After that, I should say, my apologies. Then she takes Becky to the apron, but then Becky drives Lita neck first to the top rope. Becky then goes to the top, but then Lita takes her down. Lita then flattens Becky to the mat, and then we get a cover and a near fall. Lita then goes to the top, but then Becky comes back. Becky then applies the disarmor, but then Becky transitions it into the manhandle slam. We get a cover by Becky, but then Lita gets her foot onto the bottom rope. We get repeated shots to the back by Becky Lynch. Becky at this point stands tall. She goes for the top. She goes to the top, and she tries to hit Lita's moonsault after that, but then Lita escapes, proceeding for Becky Lynch to escape missed the moonsault attempt. Then Lita hits the twist of fate. Then Lita goes to the top. She hits a moonsault, and then we get a cover and a close-ass near fall. And I will say this, I literally thought Lita had it right there, but she did not. Again, it would have been really bad if she did win the title, but I'll talk about that later on. We get the manhandle slam out of nowhere. It was kind of a finish that happened out of nowhere, but she hits the manhandle slam. We got a cover 1, 2, 3, and Becky Lynch retains the Raw Women's Championship. Overall, this was a fantastic match. I thoroughly enjoyed what I saw here, man. This match was really good. Lita looked great. You know, for her age, she looked really good. It looked like she hasn't lost a step whatsoever. Becky Lynch as well. Becky Lynch looked great. Again, the right decision was made for Becky Lynch to retain the title. I think it would have been a slap to the face to the future stars or the current stars of the company to lose to a veteran. As much as I love Lita, I don't think it would have been the right decision to put the belt on Lita, in my opinion. But at this point, Becky Lynch retains the Raw Women's Championship, and it's going to be Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair at WrestleMania, which is, again, you know, it's playing back to what happened a couple of months ago at SummerSlam, in which Becky Lynch came back and just instantly squashed the hell out of Bianca Belair last minute, which was dumb. But I definitely do see Bianca Belair retaining the title. That's just me, but it is what it is. One match that was supposed to happen was the Viking Raiders versus the Usos for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. But what happens? The Usos attack the Viking Raiders, and what happens? The match got canceled. It got canceled, which is a really lame way to cancel a match. You're really canceling a match because of the fact that the heels attack the baby faces before the match even starts. We've seen that so many times in wrestling that they didn't even cancel those types of matches. So why the hell are we doing that here? But it is what it is, man. Whatever. All right, we got the main event. We got the men's. My apologies, guys. I am extremely tired right now. We got the men's Elimination Chamber match with Riddle versus AJ Styles versus Seth Rollins versus Austin Theory versus Bobby Lashley, who is the one defending the WWE Championship, versus Brock Lesnar. Overall thoughts on this Elimination Chamber match. I really enjoyed this match. You know, I know a lot of people that did not enjoy the match, you know, did not enjoy the fact that Brock Lesnar won the match. Look, I'm going to tell you guys this right now. Yes, WWE always disappoints us, but one of the biggest problems with this particular match was the fact that, again, and I'm going to take this back to the Royal Rumble, was because of the fact that the match was just too damn predictable. And, you know, Lesnar winning is the right decision storyline-wise because of the fact that, you know, Lesnar is the main attraction. And, of course, Roman Reigns is the main attraction as well. And they're definitely pushing this whole title for title thing at WrestleMania. So, I mean, it makes sense for Lesnar to win the title. But this is the thing, you know, if this match, was a number one contender match like the women's match, we would have had Lesnar win, and then he would have probably faced Lashley at night one at WrestleMania. Now, after this match, you know, it looked like that most likely Lashley was going to face Lesnar at night one of WrestleMania, but apparently those plans are not going to take place, and I'll get to that later because apparently Lashley legitimately got injured, and I'll tell you guys why later on. But the match starts. Theory and Rollins start the match. The crowd at this point is singing Rollins' theme, which you love to see that. Of course, this is a Saudi Arabia crowd. I do have that belief that the Saudi Arabia crowd is more of a casual crowd. There's very few hardcores there, but every time when WWE goes to Saudi Arabia, it's more of a casual crowd. But they're singing Rollins' theme, and you just love to see it. I love when they do that, man. And it's not only the Saudi Arabia crowd; it's really any crowd. When you definitely hear Rollins' theme, I mean, I swear, man, I love Rollins' new theme song. It's just awesome. I mean, granted, he debuted near almost a year ago. I was at WrestleMania Night 1 where he debuted that theme, man. Who would have thought that theme song would get so over? I'm just saying. But Theory and Rollins start. The match starts. We get a side headlock by Theory. Rollins then goes for a sling blade. Rollins then runs to the corner. At this point, Theory is in control. He proceeds to work on Seth Rollins, but then we get a cover and a near fall. We get a super kick by Rollins, and then we get then to the knee, and then we get another super kick to the head. Then he takes Theory. Rollins then picks up Theory and hits the buckle bomb through Bobby Lashley's pod, which this is where Bobby Lashley's injury happened. So apparently, when Rollins hit the buckle bomb on Austin Theory, and then Austin Theory went through the barricade, Bobby Lashley's head went on one of the steel parts of the pod, which is not good whatsoever. And then Bobby Lashley actually had to get looked at by doctors, but I'll talk about that later on. Let me continue the match. Riddle then enters the chamber. We get a kick by Riddle. We get a couple of right forearms by Riddle, and then he proceeds to. Then after that, we get a running senton by Riddle. Then he hits the senton on Theory. We get a running kick by Rollins by Riddle. Then we get a pickup. Then he proceeds to pick up Rollins, and then we get a back elbow by Rollins after that. Rollins then catches Riddle after that. He goes for repeated stomps. At this point, Riddle is upside down in the corner, but then Rollins goes to the top. But Riddle catches Rollins and drops him to the mat. Then Riddle tries to goes to the top of the pod, but then Rollins comes in and throws him off. We get a cover by Rollins and a near fall. And then the doctors proceed to help out Bobby Lashley. Now, at this point, when they took out Bobby Lashley, what happened is Michael Cole on commentary stated that Lashley was officially out of the match and we're guaranteed a new WWE champion. And here were the problems that I had. I totally did understand what they meant by that, but at the same time, I did not understand what they did by that. So I'll talk about that later on. But we get a running forearm by Rollins. At this point, he goes to the top. We get a splash by Rollins off the top. We get a cover and a near fall. At this point, AJ Styles proceeds to enter the match. He's the next entrant in the Elimination Chamber. Then he picks up Rollins and hits Rollins onto the knee. He plants Riddle face first to the mat, and then we get a cover and a near fall. He then picks up Rollins. Then Styles picks up, I think it was Rollins for the torture rack. We get a cover by AJ and a near fall. We get a flying forearm by Styles, or I should say a phenomenal forearm by Styles. Then he sends Theory to the chain. Then Riddle and AJ fight it out. AJ then goes for a dragon screw on Riddle. Then Styles takes Riddle to the top. Rollins then comes in, but then Styles comes back, but Rollins as well comes back. Then Austin Theory comes in, and then drops both Rollins and Styles. Then Riddle goes for the floating bro on Austin Theory after that. We get a cover by Riddle and a near fall, and then Riddle takes Rollins and AJ to the middle rope. We get a double DDT from the middle rope by Riddle. Then Riddle sets up the RKO, so he's doing a lot of Randy Orton moves at this point. Riddle then sees the timer, so as soon as he was going to go for the RKO, Riddle sees the timer, right? So Riddle sees the timer, and he has this like scared look on his face. He's like, oh shit, Lesnar's going to come out. But then, you know how the flashing lights for the Elimination Chamber go on? It goes to Lashley's pod. Now, Lashley's pod is empty. But what happens after that is that Lesnar immediately just breaks his own pod and just comes out and pulls a Kurt Angle and takes out everyone. So what happens is we get an F5 by Lesnar. He covers Rollins and eliminates Rollins. Then he F5s Matt Riddle. We get a cover by Lesnar and then eliminates Riddle after that. Goes for a German on Styles and then hits the F5 on AJ Styles after that. He eliminates Styles. Now, the last entrant, or I should say not the last entrant, the last person in the chamber, aside from Lesnar, is Austin Theory. I'm not going to lie, man. Austin Theory sold Brock Lesnar as a killer. And what I mean by that is, like, dude, the guy literally made you think, like, holy shit, Brock Lesnar's going to murder this dude. And I mean that wholeheartedly because I'm not going to lie, man. When Theory was getting chased by Lesnar, because what happened was Lesnar chased around the chamber, went a couple of laps, I believe. He chased around Theory, and it was the funniest shit ever. I laughed my ass off watching that. It was the funniest shit that I've ever seen in my life. Theory is just getting chased by Lesnar around the cage, right? But then Theory, and I think you heard a scream by Theory, which is I gotta rewatch it, man. I laughed again, bro. It was literally one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. But then he chases Theory, right? He chases the shit out of him, and then Theory goes to the pod, but then Lesnar gets through the pod and just goes after him like freaking Michael Myers in Halloween, man. I don't know why. That was hilarious. But then after that, he attacks Theory. Then, out of nowhere, Austin Theory low blows Lesnar. Then he hits the DDT. We get a cover by Theory, and then he get a quick kick out by Lesnar. Then Theory climbs up the chamber, and then at this point, Lesnar is climbing up as well. Both are on top of one of the pods. And then Theory at this point, you know, when he's climbing up, actually, before they go up on top of the pod, Theory actually tries to find a way out of the chamber because there was like a portion of the chains that were like off. So he tries to escape from there, but then at this point, Lesnar catches him, and then they're both on top of the pod. And then Lesnar hits a freaking F5. He hits a freaking F5 on Theory off the pod, landing him onto the floor of the chamber. Now, imagine this. Imagine if this wasn't the new Elimination Chamber and it was the old circular Elimination Chamber, the OG Elimination Chamber, the Elimination Chamber that I grew up on, because the Elimination Chamber that I grew up on had the steel floor. Could you imagine if he threw Austin Theory off the top of the pod onto the steel grit? Bruh, that would have been extremely painful. But of course, this newer Elimination Chamber is set to be safer for the talent. But bro, he F5'd Theory off the top, bro. And I will say this, man. Theory was the MVP of selling for Brock Lesnar, man. This guy sold so well for Brock Lesnar. After that F5, we get a cover by Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar wins the WWE Championship, and it's now going to be champion versus champion, title for a title. It's going to be a unification match. You know, a lot of people got confused on social media with, you know, the whole champion versus champion thing not being a title for title thing, but it makes no sense for that not to be a non-title match, considering the fact that Brock Lesnar won the Royal Rumble, so this match is going to be a title for title match at WrestleMania 38. Now I will say this: Lashley getting eliminated. I mean, he didn't even get eliminated. It was kind of dumb the way he got eliminated. I understood why they did that, but at the same time, I did not understand why they did that. I did not understand why they did that because of the match per se. Because I would have loved to see Lashley and Lesnar go at it again in the chamber. But at the same time, I definitely understood what they did because of the fact that they were teasing a future match between Lashley and Lesnar at WrestleMania. But apparently those plans are absolutely out of the water now. They're completely out of the water now because apparently Bobby Lashley needs to get shoulder surgery, and he's at least out for at least 4 months. So Lashley got legitimately injured in the match. So I'm reading this from wrestling.co. So the former WWE writer Kazim, I don't know who this writer's name is, but he reported on the Ringer Wrestling show that Lashley will undergo shoulder surgery as he will be out for at least 4 months, which means that he will not be part of WrestleMania. If you watch Lashley's match with Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble, then you would have noticed that Lashley was not doing his best not to land on his shoulder when Lesnar was German suplexing him. Then he stated, and I quote, I have under good authority that Lashley is shoot hurt and has been hurt since the Rumble match. If you have noticed, he hasn't worked any Raws, and he hasn't really defended his title. He was shoot hurt at the Lesnar match at the Rumble. And then he added, and I quote, from what I'm told, it's for at least 4 months. Shoulder surgery, I am hearing that he might not even make it to Mania. As far as what this means for MVP, he has been working out to get in shape, so it's possible that he will get have an in-ring return as well, and end quote. So Lashley is officially injured. Originally, I thought, oh crap, the light. Originally, I thought that that whole injury that they did on Lashley in the match was a work, but apparently that's not the case. It's actually a legit injury. So everybody's saying, including myself, that was saying that we're going to be seeing Lesnar versus Lashley at night 1 at WrestleMania. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, and we're just going to go straight to the one-on-one title for title match with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania night 2. But yeah, overall, this was the Elimination Chamber match. The men's match was not bad at all. I totally understood why people did not like it, but I enjoyed myself watching the match. As far as the whole show itself, I thought the show was not bad at all. Was it amazing? Absolutely not. There were some aspects of the show that I just did not care about, in my opinion, but it definitely did set the stage, in my opinion, for WrestleMania. And with Lashley being out of the picture, we do not know what the hell is going to happen for WrestleMania, especially, when it comes to Lesnar and Reigns. Of course, Lesnar and Reigns are going to be wrestling at Mania. It's official. It's official. But at the same time, about the WWE title, I mean, they did have planned Lashley versus Lesnar, most likely for night 1, but apparently that's not going to be the case. So what are they going to do? We do not know. But yeah, overall, I thought Elimination Chamber was an okay show. It was not the best show whatsoever. But, I mean, it got the job done. Most of the matches that you saw here got done what they needed to get done, especially the Reigns and Goldberg match. Of course, Reigns went over, and they're basically booking Reigns like a killer right now. The guy's probably never going to lose the Universal title. And, of course, Lesnar won the WWE Championship, which will lead to a unification match. And yes, it is a unification match at WrestleMania 38 against Roman Reigns, in which Roman Reigns will take all of the gold, and he will literally reach godlike status, as a lot of other people would state, at WrestleMania. But yeah, that was my Elimination Chamber review. Overall, it was an okay show, not the best show, but I thoroughly enjoyed myself watching the show. But yeah, that was my review for the pay-per-view. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the Broken Havoc podcast on YouTube. And this is Broken Havoc, signing out.